Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Let's talk about how to become a wealthy woman and maybe some of the things that might be holding you back from making that happen and how you can actually multiply your money and multiply your impact. So I brought in Erinn Bridgman. She empowers female entrepreneurs to design a business that's not just profitable, but actually grows their personal wealth. She knows her stuff. She's crushing it with her business and with real estate. So we had a really fun conversation. As we dive in, make sure you share this with a friend who's like, yeah, I want to create more freedom and create some generational wealth. And don't forget to go to iTunes and leave a review. Take a screenshot of that review and email it to us, clientcare@rachelngom.com. And I have a little gift for you to say thank you. All right, let's dive in. Hey, Erinn, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yay. So let's start off. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a wealth business coach for female entrepreneurs. That's a huge part of my passion and my work. And then the other part of me professionally is that my husband and I run a real estate company. So that's kind of my two business lives.
Cool. How do we get into that?
Well, back in 2014, my husband and I decided we have a philosophy that we want money to work for us, not just us work for money. And we had a lot of student debt. We always joke we didn't marry each other for the money because we were negative, like almost $100,000 in student loan debt.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we started entrepreneurship together with our photo film business. And so we were able to save $18,000, and we decided we could take that $18,000 and we could pay off one student loan, or we could buy an asset that would produce the money for us to eventually then pay off all of our student loans. And so 2014 was when we bought our first property and have just grown in learned a lot and figured out a lot. And so now we own like 20 doors and we're really scaling. So yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So how do you use your business to fund your personal wealth?
Well, I mean, I think I could get into this. I don't know how far we want to go into this part
Let's
of
go deep.
Let's go. Okay. I think, like, let's recap on what I just said really quickly is we made a decision that we were going to have our business created a certain amount of money that we could then have it make more money that would leverage something for us in our personal life, which at that point was debt, right? We had a crippling amount of debt that we needed to figure out how can we like get this gone as quickly as possible. And so that is definitely a way of like strategically working towards bringing the business money into our personal life and having specific goals inside of our personal world. And so something that I teach entrepreneurs often is that we need to create a consistent salary for ourselves out of our business. Because as I've been doing this work, I attract a lot of female creative entrepreneurs. And a common theme that I see is that we pay ourselves least, last, and inconsistent. Which I could get into what is that telling our subconscious and all of that kind of thing. But, a huge remedy towards growing personal wealth is having the business actually inject our personal world with money, which is salary. And I know like a lot of times in this space, we talk about revenue or we talk about profit. And yes, those are important numbers, but I would like to say that the most important number is salary and creating a consistent salary, raising that, giving ourselves bonuses, and having a strategic plan inside of our personal world that we're excited about, that we're bought into, that allows us to strategize the money from our business into personal wealth.
Okay, I love that. How do we figure out how much we should be setting aside for our salary?
So I have a system that I've developed called the Money Matrix system. And so a couple of very important components for your listeners, as we think about our salary needs to be that we can understand the profitability in our company. So we can see like what is our healthy profit margins. Cause it's funny, like we can be like throwing out really sexy, like hey, we are a 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneur. And we're talking about revenue in that sense, but like what's your profit is really
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yep.
And so that would be the first component is we need to understand the profitability of our company. And then we need to understand the cash flow of our company as well. And so a lot of times when I'm working with people, when they think about money management inside of their business, they're thinking about P&L sheets, they're thinking about tax payments and accountant. And I like to say we really need to strategize our money in present to future in order to make decisions that are expansive, that are strategic. P&L sheets are very retroactive. It's us reconciling accounts. We're able to see patterns and stuff, but that's us present to past. And so I like to help people figure out what is the cash flow of your business. Let's look at the profitability of your business. And you really need to be tapped into your goals. So I would say that's the third component as we figure out your salary is what are the goals inside of the business? What are the goals inside of your personal life? And then we strategize based on that. So if we can see healthy profit, we can see cash flow because what is in your bank account now could be accounted for in expenses that are about to come up inside of your business, right? So you might be like, "Ooh, I could take a really healthy draw right now," but then you go in the deficit in 2 months because you've got like a large bill coming out. So we need to be able to see, I like to see 6 to 12 months of cash flow, ideally an entire year. And then we really need to like strategize projected and actual booked revenue and the expenses that go alongside of that so that we can really get a healthy idea of your cash flow to say, okay, we can see that by in 12 months, if we hit these things, we have, 30,000 extra dollars in profit or 100,000, whatever it is for you. Let's figure out, let's deploy that in a salary. We can do that per month. Let's deploy it in bonuses. And that's kind of how I do that type of work. And I would rather your money, of course, having healthy cushion is important, but I would rather you be able to have your money inject your personal world and work into reinvesting that and having that money work for you than just having it be a really large cushion that you sit inside that you're not actually utilizing and growing.
Okay. What's an easy way for people that have never done those cash flow projections? What's an easy way for them to start doing that? Like simplest way.
Yeah. Well, I would say I mean, I don't want to give too simple of an answer and then people end up because my whole thing is that people need to, if we're a business owner, we need to be in the numbers and we need to be able to look at the numbers and be able to strategize the numbers. And I think a lot of times we can put on these limiting labels like, I'm not a numbers person or I don't know how to do this. And I want to say nobody's born understanding math or numbers or spreadsheets. It's something that you can learn. But I would say if we want to like scrap like really understanding cash flow and stuff, which we need to at least at a high level, I would say you can look back on your P&L sheets from the previous year because everyone should be able to access that given we have to do taxes. Look at what was your profitability, what did you pay yourself, and based on where you're at and where you plan to be, are you going to keep it there? Are you going to raise it? The goal would be to raise it. And I say, like, just to get into sort of expansive energy, I would say, like, even if it's $100 raise, give it to yourself and put it on auto pay. So this is a huge thing I love for people to do. So if there's one thing they walk away from today, it's figure out a number you can safely pay yourself and put it on auto pay because this eliminates humanity. This eliminates our emotional being around money and helps us to like, oh, not have to think, oh, can I pay myself? Should I pay myself? No, it's already happening. It's already accounted for.
Okay, so we're paying ourselves, we're giving ourselves a good healthy salary. Then how do we decide what we're going to invest that in to multiply our money?
Yeah. So I like to say this that I believe like everyone's financial positioning is different and it's personal and there's not like exact formula. And a part of it too is, money is not just this rational thing. There's definitely a psychology to it and an emotion to it, right? For example, and then I'll get to my 5 financial goals that I teach people. But this was like maybe 2 years ago. Brent and I were holding out on our last $20,000 student loan because we were like, well, it's better for us to take that $20,000 and put it into real estate because the annualized rate of return there is way better than the debt pay down and the percentage there. And our business partner just looked at us and was like, pay the freaking loan. Like, you're going to go to bed with more ease, with like a lifted weight, like just like there's a psychological, emotional benefit or ROI that outweighs all the data and all the analyzing the numbers. So just to say, when you're listening to this and you're thinking, you need to bring your own values, your own personhood, your own situation, and kind of use your own filter. But I speak about 5 different financial goals that I like people to think about. First of all, before you even get to this, you need to understand, how much does it cost me to live my life? 65% of Americans don't know how much it costs for them to live. They don't know their budget. They don't have a plan as far as like, okay, like what about that annual, I call it the short-term annual spend, where it's Christmas and birthdays and trips, like you're planning and strategizing that into your monthly budget. And so you've got to know that, and so that you understand your surplus. So you have to get to a 0 or positive number. That's our first step, because otherwise you're just continuing a cycle of paycheck to paycheck or debt. And so that's part of what we need to do first. Then we have money. So we have, let's say that means basically that the money coming in, your salary, your income, your bonuses, is in greater access than your budget, right? So then we want to take that additional money and strategize it towards these 5 goals. So if you don't have savings and you have debt, those are the first 2 things that we sort of tackle side by side. And we look at debt and savings. If you have absolutely no savings, I want to blitz people to have a small cushion of savings. Otherwise, you're going to keep going into debt, and it kind of produces a vicious cycle. So debt pay down and savings is my first sort of like, let's look at that. What does that look like? And what is like a reasonable savings goal that you should have? And there's a lot of factors that go into it. How leveraged are you? Do you have a business savings? How much output, how much monthly expenses or general expenses does it cost you to run your business? How much cushion do you want to have there? So you need to have a clear plan. Also, understanding yourself. Are you like a hoarder, accumulator, need a ton of money to feel safe? Money's never going to make you feel safe. So that's an important thing, but push against your tendencies to create balance. And then the next 3 are that you look at investing. So what am I going to do in order to have my money work for me? And as entrepreneurs, we are not handed a 401k. We are not handed a retirement. So we need to be the ones strategizing that for ourselves. Lifestyle improvements. And then generosity is my 5th one that I talk about. So the massive order for that is like savings and debt is first. And then the next 3, it really depends on values, positioning, where you're at, that kind of thing. But those are the 5 different sort of buckets that I have women think about strategizing their money towards.
Okay, cool. So talk to us about the wealthy woman. Like, how can we really step into that powerful state of like owning that we are a wealthy woman?
I love it. So one of the huge things that I say is I believe that wealthy women will change the world, and that my mission on this earth is to help women be empowered with money, particularly because money is the currency that runs the world. And I believe that more women that are heart-centered, that have money in their hands, are going to do good for the world. And actually, statistically, we can see women are more altruistic with their money. And also, I believe the refining process that happens when we begin to think, plan, and manage money is just revolutionizing to us, which makes us come into the world with like more power and more alignment and all of these things. So I'd say the first thing, like if we're talking order, is like really thinking about how do we think about money, and honing in on what are our blocks with money, what has been our story with money, what are our gifts with money, and sort of having this really healthy engagement with our thought life around money. Because out of our thinking, we produce our action, which produces our results. And so my strategy of working with people is working on that component, working on the headspace, working on our narratives and our stories there, while we also work on building the musculature of managing our money. And I've talked a little bit about that, like understanding the cash flow, profitability, salary, personal financial goals and stuff. And so as we do both of those, I believe that um, we are living into being a wealthy woman. And everyone's story, everyone's journey is unique to them. But that's where I'd say you're dialing up your thinking, you're dialing up your planning, and you're dialing up your managing of your money in order to walk in your power.
Cool. What do you see as some challenges that are keeping women from actually building wealth?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I don't know if I can like say for sure percentage, but I would say a majority of it is the mindset piece for sure.
Mhm.
Because like I said, it's sort of the root, it's sort of the foundation. Like out of our thinking is then how we decide where we're going to strategize our money, where we're going to put our money. And so the more that we're able to become healthy, like we have a really healthy relationship with money. We believe in taking like risks, like that are expansive with knowledge. We believe that we are worthy of money. That's a huge common theme I hear is a worthiness conversation. Like, I'm not worthy to charge this amount, or I'm not worthy to pay myself this salary, or I'm not worthy to spend the money on myself. And so I think the more that we are first acknowledging like what has our story been, what are the limiting beliefs that we hold, where do we have the blocks, where do we have the strengths that we can own, um starting there I think is really important because it changes how we show up and the decisions that we make. And then I would say, kind of to reiterate what I've said before, wealthy women have a salary that they are like consistently dedicated to, that like sort of even like the profit first, right? It's like salary first here. So, and that you have a personal financial plan for that. And I say piles of green cash are not very inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're listening in and you're just like, Erinn, just give me like one action I can do right now, I would say to bring into focus one financial goal for yourself and the specific dollar amount. So if it's paying off a credit card, then I want to know like what is the exact amount of money down to the penny, because this helps bring into focus like the actual goal, put it in a spot you're going to see every day. And then you're going to do something different when all of a sudden you realize, hey, if I land this extra client, I can pay myself this amount of money over the next da 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 da, and I should be able to pay off that credit card in 3 months. And so that's a huge thing, is being very clear on our financial goals, the exact amount of money, and the feeling it will produce for us, because we are emotional beings and our goals are always tied into a feeling that we want to produce. That's going to make the most inspiring goals that are going to have us do big, beautiful work, because all of a sudden now we're going towards a feeling of freedom. or peace, because we're working to pay down debt that we no longer will be able to, get rid of in 10 months, because we know the feeling we want to go towards and we know the exact dollar amount.
I love that. I know that has always been huge for me. When I have an exact dollar amount and a goal attached to it, that's when like magic happens.
Yes, you're like all of a sudden, and when you're projecting, okay, you get into this energy of like manifesting and bringing in more, and you're like, okay, what could I do to make that money happen? Because
Mhm.
I want to feel that. I want to feel that peace. I want to feel that power, whatever, that generosity, whatever it is for you.
Cool. So talk to us how you got into real estate. How did you find deals when you were first getting started? And how did you know like this is a good deal? Because when you're first getting started, you know nothing. And it's like if you make a mistake, it's a very expensive mistake at that point.
Yeah. Well, the first house is a really funny story. So do you mind if I share it?
Go for it.
Okay. So Brett and I was working in higher education. So I was a resident director. I was making a salary, I'm not kidding, of 20,000 and some change. Literally not like less than $21,000. My housing was paid for and some additional things like that. And I was just like not satisfied with living on that low of money. And Brett and I have been entrepreneurs, I think, since we were born. And so that's when we started we had the photography video business going, and we were scaling that. And like I said earlier in the show, we had the $18,000 in our bank account. And I kind of was like torn. Part of me was like, I just want to roll around in that money. I mean, that's like basically my entire salary for a year. And Brent was commuting to Chicago at the time, working towards his PhD, and he was listening to a lot of books, listening to Bigger Pockets. His father had invested in real estate, and so he was kind of familiar through that. And so Brent was educated, and we were like, okay. I said to Brent one night, you know, if this is something you're really passionate about and you're obviously like well educated in at this point, like knowledge, not like actually we've done it before. That's a whole different type of education. Let's go for it. Like I'm open to the idea. Let's kind of like explore it. And the next morning, I like roll over and Brent's not in bed. And I'm like, what the heck? And he calls me and he's like, hey, I'm out on my bike and I'm looking for our first rental property. It's like, oh, I guess you didn't like waste any time there. And we lived in a college town. Like I said, I was living in a residence hall. And so college rentals can be very profitable. And he actually called this real estate agent. He found for initial home. It was a disaster of a home, asbestos, all this stuff. Way too big of a project for us to take on as our first one. And she was like, I really don't think that's a good idea for you guys, but I do have this house and it's about to come on the market. Would you want to see it? And that's the house we bought. And that house, through lots of series of things, ended up netting us about $100,000 in profit, which paid off all of our student loans.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, so that was our first home. And since then we've had a lot of other homes. And we always say, like, I'll never forget our first flip. I think we only made money because I was literally painting the front porch. Brent was in the crawl space with the shovel broken in half, shoveling out the sewer line, because if we had to pay to get it done, we would lose money. And so there's been like a lot of education that has been learned. And we always say education is expensive. And
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about like going and paying for college. I'm talking about,
Right.
well, we barely made any money there. We lost money here. But if people are really interested, the book on rental properties is a great book. Brett and I really believe in investing in real estate. Our philosophy is we work to do the BRRRR method to create long-term rentals, and we use the flips to help us cash flow those. So right now our goal is to purchase 3 to 4 homes a month. 2 of them would be rentals, 2 of them would be flips, and that's sort of our cycle there. But that's a great book, and Bigger Podcasts is a great or Bigger Pocket, and they have a whole blog podcast. That's another great resource for people if they're interested in real estate.
What are some mistakes that you've made or lessons that you've learned through your experience?
I think like being a little bit too like afraid to make like like you are working with bigger numbers, and you have to be comfortable with risk, and you have to be comfortable with like losing money,
Mm-hmm.
and so maybe holding a little too tightly at the beginning, or like yeah, I would say. And then also I would say, we've been asked this question before, and we didn't seek out like mentorship at the beginning. And so I think that could have like definitely expedited um our growth and our ability to scale. Um yeah, so those would be some of the things I'd say.
Cool. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
I think, well, that's such a broad, beautiful question. I think for me, it's knowing what my particular impact is in my particular season, and working to stay in alignment with my intuition. A couple years ago, about a year and a half ago, I found myself in a very like misaligned place. I was working to scale my company the way people say, the experts say you should, and like running the Facebook ads and the funnels and the timers, and growing the team underneath me, and like thinking I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and sort of abandoning my intuition. And so
Mm.
I think that our impact changes based on our season. I'm a mom. I have a 4-month-old. I have a 2.5-year-old. I so like I'm constantly like trying to see like what is this season of life calling me to? And that might mean something different. We actually just shut down sort of one of the paths we were going to start scaling, because we needed more spaciousness in our lives to be healthy in our marriage and in raising our babies and stuff like that. And so I think I would say like a continual like check-in of like, what is my season and what is my intuition telling me is like my impact for right now. And then I think understanding like I'm very clear on like my greater mission being that I'm like working to empower women, and to specifically empower female entrepreneurs around money.
Yeah, I love it. Where can we connect with you?
I'm most active on Instagram. So if you want to follow me there, it's my name, Erinn. My family had to make my name complicated. So 2 N's, Erinn Bridgman, no E on bridge. So we can hang out on Instagram, and you can head over to my website. I have a Wealthy Woman checklist, which is a great resource for you to become like just working on like what are the components of being the CFO of my mindset around money, and then my business and my personal finances. So that's a great resource. I've had people print it off and have like meetings with their partner and be like, we are getting some things lined up. So go grab that as well.
Cool. Thank you so much, Erinn, for being on the show.